All right, lovely to see so many familiar faces and some new faces. I think we'll start with a very quick introductions. We have a really packed agenda for the Data Challenge today. My name's Robert. Thanks for everyone for joining. We had about 105 people register today. We're going to get underway quickly because we have a really packed agenda. A few things I want to start with is the nature of the data challenge is that it's something that we want to capture and be able to reuse and share. So we are recording these sessions. They will be made available on the Primero Data Challenge microsite, which we'll paste a link in the chat for you. We keep it all pretty nicely curated, and I think we must be doing something right because that little microsite is getting many hundreds of visits, and the content on those pages is getting viewed over and over again. So this community is really pushing the agenda on data usage. Um, to get us underway today, I'll be chairing. I'm just going to do the standard introduction, introduce some of our guests and some of the work that they're focused on. Again, the all this will be recorded and will be made available on the Data Challenge website. So I'm going to quickly jump over to some slides that we'll present, and we'll get the ball rolling really quickly today. You'll see there that we have a new logo for our 10-year anniversary, which is this year. We are going to be celebrating this in our global meeting in November when this cycle of the data challenge will come full circle. And I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. Just because we do have such a packed agenda, I'm going to go through some of the initial content here and just kind of talk you through the agenda, what we're going to be looking at today, and frame this for you. Do an initial walkthrough, and then I'll be handing over for our presenters. So just to get us underway, in terms of the introduction and the refresher to Primero, I'm going to quickly go through what the data challenge objectives are, linkages to RDPC. I'll just take a few minutes of your time for that. And then we're going to hear from colleagues in the field who are presenting on different aspects of data usage and Primero data usage specifically. So I want to frame this as a series of questions that we hope to dive into and answer over the course of the next hour and a half together. So the first is our colleague Shakil Ahmed from the UNICEF Pakistan country office. The main question that I see in this presentation is, what do we do if we need an alternative to Power BI, for example? Imagine a government partner that doesn't want to use Power BI, or imagine a partner or a group of partners that don't have access to it and they're looking for a different data visualization solution. This is what we're going to hear from with Shaquille and his colleagues. It's really impressive stuff. It's this data visualization framework called Frappy that they'll talk about. And I think this is something really new and exciting, relevant for everybody, and a very interesting precedent. The second presentation, we're going to hand it over to Mamadou, one of our core Primero team members based in Western Central Africa, and he's going to answer the question, how do we take the Power BI work that we've been doing over the past year, and how do we make a template out of that that we can scale up and use it in many places, and what does it take to do that? He's going to share some of the work that he's been doing on templating that Power BI Primero dashboard, and really fascinating stuff that he's doing specifically with Burkina Faso. The third session is on a very particular problem statement, which is, what do we have as an alternative to manually creating GET requests from the Primero API for large case loads? So you'll probably, if you've been working with Power BI and Primero, you'll know that we had this one limitation on the number of records that the API could the API could get with a single request. And if you have a very large caseload, tens of thousands, we bumped into something of a problem there. Our colleague Mohan, who's based in Bangkok, he found a solution for this. It's pretty technical, and Mohan can't be with us today, so he's recorded a short video for us to watch. But I think for those of you working with the API and specifically with Power BI, that it's going to be a game changer for you and allow you to automate things and really lower that threshold for a meaningful data visualization strategy. Fourth on the agenda is our colleague Marta Passerini. She is the coordinator of the CPIMS steering committee, and this will be the first, and I think a super exciting piece of work, the first time we're talking about evidence generation using CPIMS data. So this is a proper research project funded by the the USAID Bureau of Population, BPRM, and they're looking specifically at CPIMS data across a bunch of different contexts and doing analysis on it. It's a proper piece of research, and Marta's going to present the findings on that. Then Jane and I will quickly do, with whatever time is remaining, a quick update on what's coming to you soon. We've just had a release this week, lots of data related things to update you on there. So it's 7 past the hour. I want to keep rolling. I know that there are some people on the call that are new to the Primero Data Challenge. So let's just quickly run through the objectives. This is about improving responsible and effective data usage. The main focus of the data challenge is we gather all this data, how can we use it for programming in a meaningful way? We're obligated to do that. How do we do that effectively and responsibly? How do we do that? Well, first thing is we have to learn how to do that. And the best way to do that is to share experiences, help build capacity through this type of community engagement. And I'm also including a new line here, linking our work to responsible data for children, which is a principles-based initiative with lots of cool work going on. If you don't know about RD4C, check it out, rd4c.org. They publish tools, case studies, principles. It's really useful stuff, especially for advocacy and for frontline work. And of course, improving Primero products and services, the end goal being better data for better results for children and survivors of violence. Last little thing I'll say is this is a progressive and participatory initiative, the data challenge. We want to focus on very specific, achievable problem statements so that we can focus our energy and get through these things together and sort of build momentum. We're looking at different use cases and challenges to learn from each other and from other teams with different specializations, different capacities. And then, of course, there's a prize at the end. So we're nearing the end of the second year of the data challenge. Last year, the Cambodia team presented their work and they were upvoted as the best solution or presentation in the data challenge. We'll have that same voting session during our annual global meeting in Nairobi in November. So bring your game face. I'm gonna now ask my colleague Shaquille in the UNICEF Pakistan Child Protection Team to come on to introduce himself and to present on the exciting work that they're doing in several different provinces and territories in Pakistan. Over to you, Shaquille.
Hi, Robert. Can you hear me?
2 thumbs up. I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction, and thanks to all the participants. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I believe we have people from different time zones. So as Robert already mentioned, I am mindful of the time, and I will start my presentation with this. So I'm presenting on behalf of, my name is Shakil Ahmed. I'm working as a program officer, data and knowledge management. So I'm presenting this on behalf of my team, the Child Protection Team, Pakistan. They are also attending the meeting. Few of them are traveling, so they may join slightly late. Besides that, we have a technical partner from Micro Merger as well. Zishan is also attending the meeting, so we'll also be responding to a few of the questions during this session. So can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm moving with this. So before I start the presentation, I would like to give you a quick overview of Pakistan for those participants who just have less idea. So Pakistan, we have, as per 2023 census, the total population of nearly 241.49 million. We are the fifth most populous country in the world, and at this point of time, as per the last census of last year, we have approximately 112 million children. Uh, Other than that, the way Pakistan after last our constitution amendment, we have different provinces. They have their own legislations, so we don't have one single system which we are running. We have separate solutions for each province and territories. We have four big provinces: Punjab, Sindh, and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan, and then we have three territories. So I'm not going to go into the detail, but you can see the populations. With this, all these provinces and territories means that we have to work with these governments for a separate system, separate solutions as per the legislation. Uh, I'm starting with the quick journey. This is actually a very long journey, which took us nearly more than 5 years. But focusing on the IMS part, we started with the IMS assessment. We worked with different government counterparts. We saw their forms, the way they are, doing the case management work, and then we did the validation exercise. After validation, we worked on the requirement specification document, and then we start working on the CPIMS, the designing of the CPIMS, and we did testing and did training of different field teams. Eventually, the point, this 8 point dashboard development was the point which was very time consuming for us, because governments wanted to have different sort of reports and charts in that version, and we did that, and we then deployed the system. At this point of time, we have five different deployments running: Balochistan, GB, ICP, KP, and SEN. There are two deployments which are currently underway, and we are planning to work on that in next few months, maximum 6 months. The problem statement, when we started to work on CPIMS, we used the Primero code and we started to work on it. And as I mentioned, that we have to work on the dashboard part. So one of the challenge we faced was that we have to we have to tweak the code base just to include that dashboard. So at this point, we didn't have that idea that we are going to face multiple problems later on. But we used the old version of Primero, which was released back in 18th October 2021. That was Primero 2.1.0. And then we, as I mentioned, we altered the code base just to ensure that our dashboard run properly. Then one of the challenge for us with this was that we had limited module access, just restricted access to application modules that was hindering the analysis and dashboard functionality. We also face customization issues. Alterations to the core code prevent seamless upgrades, leading to potential data security compromises. So, solution approach, what we have done recently, which I'm going to present, one of the major contributing factor was the last the Primero global meeting, because in that meeting we learned a lot of different ideas thanks to the HQ team, Robert Janani, and other countries. We realized that we need to now come back to the Primero latest versions, and we need to think of something out of the box, so that we can retain our dashboards, but other than that, we can have the latest global updates as well. So what we did was that after that, we track our code modifications. We implement a system to monitor the changes and the versions made in the code. Then we upgraded it to the latest version, aligned with the latest standard by updating version 2.10.5, which was released in July. We established a pilot environment to track the modification and update system while preserving the essential customization. For to start with, we we planned that instead of moving to all regions at once, we have decided to go one by one and have a pilot rollout in Sindh province. So we have now used Sindh as a pilot. We are rolling out the updated system in Sindh very soon. We already had initial discussion with the government. We have shown them the system. Soon we are going to conduct the orientation sessions, and then we will plan the trainings and the rollout. And eventually, with this experience, we have lined up the rollout in other regions as well. So what are the updates we have performed? One of the perform was that we aligned it to the global updates. We now we are going to have the latest updates all the time. We mapped the district and the seal in our system, which was also a big challenge. We did in terms of data management. We migrated and restructured data from old system to the new. So all the live data which were the Synth team had in their CPIMS, we migrated it into the new version, the latest one. Other than that, government also wanted us to have their historical data imported. So we imported that data also, though it has certain limitations because that data, the forms they use initially were not, matching with the current forms. There are some other challenges as well, but we did a mapping exercise and we have managed to do that as well. The new module we recently, have now introduced because they came as a part of the new global update was the family tracing and reunification, and we are going to conduct training sessions on that as well. On the dashboard, we have configured a totally new dashboard configured. I'm going to touch upon the solution, Frappy, in few slides. Other than that, we also introduced the alert system as per government's request. Not only email, but we are experimenting on the SMS notifications as well. Frappy Insight. So this was the tool we have used. This is part of the Frappy framework, open source data analytics framework. And what were our integration steps? So we started with the availability of the RESTful API in Primero. This was one of the options. The second was how to directly connect to the post release program. These are the two which are and we have used them. Frappy framework, we did the setup of the Frappy. Then we use Python's request library for HTTP requests to Primero. We did parsing of API responses to extract relevant information. And as you can see that with this connectivity, we're using the Python HTTP request and the parsing of API data. We have configured the Frappy framework, which then get connected with the DB, and eventually this displays as the live dashboard report. This is you guys must be very familiar with this one. I'm just sharing with you that this is the Primero release management flow, and we are exactly following the same flow. We'll have new release, we'll have a promotion to the demo, and then promotion to production, release support, troubleshooting, bug fixes if there are any, and then we'll inform the teams that the system has been updated. A very quick diagram to explain the way we're going to work. This is how the latest updates are going to come, and they will directly go to the Primero development code base, and then through which we will see how the DB is linked and how the Frappy dashboard is showing all the reports and graphs, charts. And then once everything is satisfactory, we will shift it to the production server. Data models and visualization steps. So how we have done that? We created an update data models in Frappy. We define new doc types and fields for Primero data acceptance. We use Frappy's tools for regular data import and also write script to import the legacy data, which I already mentioned. We leverage Frappy's insight visualization capabilities for charts and reports. We use Primero's existing user permissions and allow users to the flexibility to create their own charts as needed, empowering them to customize their data visualization according to their needs. So this is one of the points which we may not be able to touch upon in detail, but if there is a need, we can have a separate session for that. But this tool is a very powerful tool, and you can have transfer this knowledge to the end user that if they would like to have some specific charts and graphs generated at their own, they can do that as well. So dynamic dashboard. I'm just very quickly going to show you some of the screenshots. Before that, just few of the features. This open source solution, Preply integration, we have enabled dynamic query capabilities. We have user-specific charts, custom dashboard tailored to user roles. We have a visual query builder. This is a visual interface to create a query. If you can use this interface, if you're not very much familiar to SQL, so this is for those people who don't know much how to code, so they can easily learn that and they can generate their own queries. SQL editor is also there. So if those people who know how to use SQL editor, it's going to be much more easier for them. They are familiar with them. Script query editor. This interface allows to write Python scripts to create queries. You can use this interface if you're familiar with Python. So these are just screenshots of the dashboard. This is currently just a pilot version I'm sharing with you. So you can see that few of the graphs, for example, this open and close cases per year. Here you can see the case load across from the start of the when we start entering the data in the system. At this point of time, our system is having like data from last 5-6 years. So then you can see also the different source of information from where we receive the cases, and these are all based on the requirement from the government. So we had discussions with them. We discussed about different charts, and this is not the final list. If in the future they will come up with some more suggestions, we'll definitely consider adding those as well. So what were the challenges we faced? So it was not an easy journey. It was a quite complex data migration from the legacy Excel system, because government wanted to have their previous data linked as well. Although we had a discussion with them to have that data saved as archive mode as well, but they really wanted it to be there in the system. We had to import the multiple years of data while ensuring accuracy, completeness, and integrity throughout the migration process. Another challenge was the Primero upgradation, overcoming the compatibility issue during the upgradation from 2.1.0 to latest one, which is 2.10.5. We also faced a lot of challenges in the district and tehsil mapping. The names were not matching their previous data, so we have to work on that as well. And then the custom features, the lack of available documentation of Primero integration, and handling the way Primero handle data types and data conversion. Our way forward plans are that we are, in terms of technical specification, we'll ensure that the infrastructure meets the required standard and it's regularly maintained. Our system scalability is also, our priority. We will plan for future infrastructure upgrades as system usage increases. We will ensure the training and support, ongoing training, conduct regular training sessions and refreshers for the users at all levels, support the system, provide regular support to users in case they encounter any problem, data quality issues. We'll regularly check the data post-migration, and we'll figure out if there are any data accuracy issues, and we'll sort them out as well. Compliance monitoring is also the plan. Continuously update the system to make sure that local laws, and if there are any changes in the forms, we reflect them continuously. Phase-wise approach, as already mentioned. So with Sindh, we have already now started to have discussion with the two different governments that we are going to work with them now. And then with this pilot development in Sindh, we'll ensure that we get their feedback. We'll further refine the system, and then eventually we have a transition plan. We're already started discussion with Balochistan, and we are moving to Punjab and KP very soon, including proper timelines that we'll have agreement with the government. So thank you so much. With this, I tried to be quite quick, and now I'm going to show you the few of the live graphs and charts from this. So just a minute, please. If you can see my screen. Robert, can you confirm? So here it is. It's again the pilot environment right now. It will take a few minutes to load. And you can see that we have linked this dashboard icon here. So this is going to be the one last step. The moment we are going to have any update, we will have that linked here, and you'll be able to see that dashboard icon here, and you will be see able to. And this is all live data. This is directly connected through the DB and showing you the live reports. You can see the number of cases, you can see the open and closed cases, you can see the comparison per year, you can see the cases per month and year. We are also trying to explore a lot of other options as well, where we can have filters, but as I mentioned, this is work in progress. So maybe to share some more innovation in the same Frappy dashboard with you. We can have you can see the open cases with workflow, how many new, how many assessments have been done, how many final case. So some of the chart may not make sense because this is the pilot environment and we are doing all the testing work in this one. So open cases with workflow per gender, just to give an idea, open cases per sex protection concern, the caseload as per the protection concern, age wise as well, and then sex types, closed cases. So we have a long list of dashboard charts here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but this is very soon we're going to have very in-depth session with the government. They're going to review these, and we'll be further fine-tuning them. And if they will be requesting any further, we will have them. In fact, we are going to train them and guide them how can they add themselves a new chart. So that's it from my side with this. Thank you so much. If there are any questions, I'm available. My team is available. So over to you guys. Thank you.
Wow, that's very impressive. Very, very impressive. Great work. Hats off to the team. It shows so much potential, and I'm sure there are lots of folks on the call that have questions for you. So please do use the chat for the webinar. We're going to rely on the chat for Q&A. Please, folks, use the chat to include any questions for Shaquille. And as we wait for some of those to come, I'm just gonna ask you a few myself. So the important detail about that history, the context that Shaquille explained was that in Pakistan, we're talking about a country with very, very high capacity, especially technology for development capacity. But there's a ton of capacity in country, and Shaquille and his team are working directly with these provincial governments who want to basically run and manage Primero on their own in their own infrastructure, and they want to take full responsibility for that. And there couldn't be, that's like music to our ears because it means that the product, the community, the artifacts and the resources associated with it are compelling enough for a high capacity government partner to want to take this on as a part of their own national child protection system. So that's fantastic. It brings with it a series of challenges that aren't the typical challenges that we face, which are more around how we coordinate, how we align, how we make sure that our that downriver our stakeholders understand that there are dependencies, and how we communicate around that. So this is an exceptionally interesting time for us to be working, and it could be a very impactful project. So keep your eyes on this one. Obviously, Frappy is open source. The questions that I have are, how replicable is this? How easy is this for somebody else to pick up with their own national digital transformation team or national vendor and implement it for themselves? And I don't know, Shaquille, if that's a question that you can answer or not, but that's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
So shall I start with your question, or like maybe I can respond to it, and I can wait. I can see there's some hand raised as well. Yeah. So thank you so much, Rod. So yeah, your question, and thanks for the appreciation. So this, as I mentioned, this is actually a team effort. So Our lesson learned was that we really worked really hard with the government, and as you already mentioned, it's not easy to work with that many governments. It's not about one deployment. We are talking about five different instances of primary installation, deployments, and all the challenges, and nearly all have different forms, different government counterparts, and then now we are going to move to two more, so it's going to be seven. You can see. With this Frappy one, this was initially, when we came back from the last Primero global meeting, it was actually something we tried to explore many options. We explore Power BI, we explored the Cold FN, I remember, another solution as well. So we wanted to have an open source solution, which is not going to cost anything. But thanks to our technical team, who are really good. Zishan is here; he can add further to these points. But they come up with this idea, and we had multiple discussions on that. We just wanted to explore how it's going to work, and the initial results we saw with the dashboard was very promising, and that's how we started to move. And I remember, that was the time I had a discussion with you as well, and at that time we were also like very very curious that how it's going to work. But eventually the journey was good. Trappy worked, but I must give the credit to our technical team that who have really done a brilliant job. But it's just a test for us to make sure that it's properly rolled out in sync. And very soon, by the end of this year, we plan to roll it out to at least three of the locations. So overall, it was not that difficult, and I believe this can easily be replicated to other regions, based on our experience. And we'll be more than happy to assist any team who need any support. More than happy to have bilateral discussions as well. Thank you.
Great. We do have a question coming from Nabras. I'm gonna allow you to just ask your question, Nabras. Can you use your
Yes.
microphone now? There you go. Over to you.
Yes. Did you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Tamam. I first of all thank you, Shakil, for the presentation. It was beneficial and informative. I have two things to ask about. The first one is when you mentioned that the Primero in your context is linked to an email and SMS application. So would you please elaborate on the way how it works there in your context? Because this is something our team here are looking for it. This is the first point. The other thing is the slice of the challenges. You mentioned that some of the provinces in your context is using different versions of Primero. Version 2. My understanding is when after version 2 has applied, when it comes to the demo one, after a while, when it's getting tested, it automatically goes to the production one. So I'm a little bit confused why this is happening over there. So maybe you could also elaborate on this point, why this kind of challenges happen, so we can have more understanding of that. Thank you. I hope I give it clearly.
Yes, thank you so much. So I'll start with your second question. So as I mentioned in my presentation, this was our challenge was not that we are using the older system, or our challenge was that we had certain modifications in the code base because of the dashboard. I can even show you a quick look of that dashboard, which was not that much, I mean, to be honest, this was our requirement. We have done it, not that dynamic, but you see, this serves the purpose. This was the one we have. So, sorry, I thought I'm sharing something, but the screen is not shared. But the challenge was that our code was slightly changed, and this was not supporting any recent updates. So this was a challenge. As I mentioned, that we have to detrack. We have to reach to the point where we have done the changes in the code. We have to start from that point and then go back to the original code base, and we use the most recent one, which was released this July, very recently. So this was, I think I responded to your this question. So the challenge was not the Primero version 2.0, it was slight modifications in the code base. And the other question about, if I'm not wrong, if I heard you correctly, was the email alert system and SMS. So this is also the first time we are trying this for our this Sindh government, and this was also based on the Sindh government's request. They wanted to have it, and for email we use Primero's default system. Primero gives this functionality. Robert can add further to that, and we use the same. For SMS, we actually use the same, but we have SMS packages with different mobile providers. So government had that with them, and they gave it to us. On this point, I'm requesting my colleague Zishan if he would like to add any further points to the alerts. Zishan, are you there? I'm not sure if Zishan is around, but I hope I responded to your question, or like if you need further clarity how we have incorporated, we can have a little session on this SMS and email alert as well.
Yes,
Zishan?
exactly. I would
Zishan.
ask for a bilateral talk later on.
Yeah, Zishan, would you like to add something?
I just had to open the mic for him. There you go, Zishan. You can reply now.
All right, thank you very much. So thank you very much, and good job, Shakil did in a timely way. He did demonstrated a lot of times effort, presented the whole journey to everybody. So thank you very much. Regarding the email question, I think that Primero already have that alert notification jobs. So the jobs that are currently being used in Primero to send notification. So we are gonna replicate the similar notification job and gonna use that for our SMS sending feature. So it's a similar utility that we are gonna write for sending SMS notification based on the functionality that is currently existing for sending alerts via email. So that's the approach that we are planning on using. We are also planning on releasing that after testing it with the in Pakistan. We would also release that module for the community.
Thank you
That's
so much,
fantastic.
Thank you.
Great. We have a packed agenda. I'm still very excited about where we take this together, Shakil. There's just amazing potential here. It's a first in many ways. One of the challenges that you mentioned was about documentation, and because Primero is still growing, we're still it's a digital public good, but it's a product that's growing and evolving all the time. And one of the things that we have to do together is hear feedback, like you mentioned in the challenges part of your presentation, the lack of documentation or the lack of a precedent. Or I know that some of the colleagues on the call today are technologists, and they're looking for answers in this large volume of materials that we have. We're going to have to work on this together because it is a first. So as this evolves, we'll feed back more information to the community through the support hub, through the Primero Data Challenge and other channels. But keep your eyes on this space because it's evolving quickly, and hopefully we'll be able to share this with you soon and bring these innovations to scale and to impact. I am going to say thank you very much, Keel, for your presentation. We have to keep moving if we're going to fit in everything. So wonderful. I appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time. I'm going to quickly jump back to the presentation so that I can introduce our good friend and colleague, Mamadou, to move forward with the next session of the agenda. Mamadou is looking at this very specific problem that we had. We developed a functioning model for integrating Power BI with Primero Case, Power BI with the Primero Cases API. And lots of people saw that in the Primero Data Challenge. They got very excited about it, and they said, well, we want that too. We want to do that. Just because you've done something once doesn't mean you can do it many, many times. What we needed is a replicable pattern that we could follow, a way to actually take this solution to scale. So I'm going to hand it over to Mamadou, who's going to talk to you about his work in West and Central Africa, and specifically in Burkina, and how he's addressed the problem with, bringing the Power BI solution to new contexts and new implementations. So Mamadou, if you're there, please grab the screen and I'll let you take over.
Hi, Robert. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. I'm just going to introduce you the situation of Burkina Faso and more concretely what we just developed on Power BI. And we developed this dashboard for two reasons. The first one is that sometimes we want to share data with person and sometimes it's partner, and we don't want them to have directly access to the CPIMS because that we're looking for another platform where they can go and have access to statistic data only. This is for the first reason. And the second reason is true that we have a report in the CPIMS list, but sometimes we need more advanced report with map, for example. That's why we finally decided to develop this dashboard. And a special thank to Ali from Iraq, who share this template with us, and we adapt it to make a template for our region, West and Central Africa. So we want every country in the region to have this kind of dashboard linked directly to CPIMS Plus. And just after me, I think Mohan will come with you and explain how we can link this. And I'm going to share my screen. Rob, if you see my screen, can you let me know, please?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, thank you very much. And we developed this website. It's only one page. It's very basic website. It's still in draft. We need to add domain. This is from the ministry because we have more and more link in our context. We have the first one is for the demo, the second one, the production, and the third one, we have data. So with this one page web page, you can connect directly to demo, or this is for the demo, for example, the first button, and you can come back and connect to production. It will be very easy for caseworker. This is for the production, and the third one is for data, to visualize data. We try to keep all the elements in the same place. And we are thinking with the ministry, perhaps in the coming week, we are going to work with them to add another page for case management specifically, and another page for CPIMS, where you can have, for example, a different document form, guidelines, all the documents that relate to case management or CPIMS directly. And this is our dashboard we developed for Burkina Faso, and it's directly linked to the CPIMS Plus. We have 5 pages. And the first one is the home. We just have the title of the system. This is CPIMS Plus data analyzed from Burkina Faso. And the first one, for a person who already saved a dashboard for Iraq, it's approximately the same. So we just take and share some data inside. We have general information on the country. And in the left here, we have different filters. We can filter by organization, by sex, for example, by nationality, protection concern, and we have a specific GBV filter too, and risk level, case statute, region, province. We can select all the locality we want, and we will see the different data. And after this, we have population statute. If it's, for example, a local community, if it's IDP, if it's migrant or returning people. This is the first element we have in our dashboard. And after that, we have nationality. We have number of case by organization or service. But you will see here, we need to finalize it. We work with the ministry for that. And because everything we did to the ministry to let them know how to manage this kind of dashboard. And we have case by sex, case statute, we open it, handicap, a mental handicap and physical handicap. And here we have the protection concerns. So after this, we have within total number of case and the total number of case worker. It's very easy for us to know how many case worker we have per location, for example. And here you can filter by date. The second one is the type of violence represented by administrative level. We have level 1 and level 2 with this Burkina Faso map here. And if you can just select one locality and you will have the data of this locality. This is admin level 1 and this is admin level 2. You have the total number of case, and here we have the total number of case worker who already record the case in this region. And we keep in this part the fourth form of violence, physical, psychological, neglect, and sexual violence. The third one is the case details. This is more specific to emergency. We have the reason of the separation study, if it's an accompanied separate of a CAFAG, and if the children have papers, level of risk, and where the children live. But we keep all the filter, number total of case, number of case worker, and filter by date in all the 5 pages we have. And the last one is just for the support. And the support is 2 persons from the ministry in charge of child protection. You have 2 persons with different information if you want to be in touch with them and know how to develop this kind of dashboard, or if you want more information. And this is our dashboard from Burkina Faso. What we really look for is all the countries who have the CPIMS Plus. We want them to have this kind of dashboard linked direct to CPIMS Plus. And for the country from West and Central Africa, in this call, you can be in touch with us later to see in which condition, for example, you can have this kind of dashboard linked to your CPIMS Plus. Robert, I think from my side is okay. I don't know if there is some question.
Let's open it up to the floor. So there's some innovations in this one. First of all, you know, the lifting of the template that we've used in other countries and applying it in Burkina, that is something I'm very interested in, the amount of work that requires. Mamadou is particularly good at this, but for a lot of us, you know, it's important to understand what is the level of effort that's required to do something like this. So Mamadou, can you explain a little bit to people, you know, sort of how much time this took for you to do it, you know, what the main challenges are in terms of, you know, taking this template and implementing it for a new country?
Okay, thank you very much, Robert. First and for the time, it's really depend. We have country in our region, for example, like Nigeria, who have more than 1 million cases in the CPIMS Plus. And we have country, for example, as Burkina Faso, where we have less than 4,000. So it really depends. If we are working with country as Nigeria, for every action you are doing, you can wait 30 minutes or 1 hour. And we set up this kind of dashboard. You can be sure that it's more than 1,000 action you are going to do in the system. But for the time, I think for system like Burkina Faso, if I work alone, I take all my time. It's true that to update data is take a lot of time. Maximum in 1 week we can finalize this the first draft. But we are working with the ministry. So I think this system is we working on it. There is a 1 or 2 months thing like that, because we want them to follow all the process and share different skills with them in this kind of dashboard. The second one, I think, for the challenge to develop this kind of dashboard is to really limit in Power BI which data, for example, the user can access through the Power BI. We are not going to allow access to all the database. For example, if you come back to the database through the Power BI, we can have access to the specific data. For example, name, sensitive data, you cannot have access to this data. So you need to block all these links. And for me, the most difficult is when you upload your database on the Power BI, you need to take time and work on all the different fields in your dashboard. And when you will load your dashboard, you will see that sometimes for multi-select or for some title, it's not exactly the same. And this take a lot of time to correct all these elements. You have your really clean database before start working on the visualization. But now for the visualization, it's depend. For example, in the case of Iraq, we use the basically this template, and we have some different elements, and the data source are not the same because we decide to make everything directly online. And you can work in the template. You say that they have some time online dashboard, and you have a local database. So it's not exactly the same, but we just need to take time to see concretely how they build their dashboard and how we want to build our dashboard, see the link and the difference, and try to align it.
Great, man. This is really exciting. Not only have we succeeded in starting a process of scaling up the use of this template, we also have, Jan has just pasted in the chat the documentation for it. This documentation has been evolving, but it's getting better as people use it more. And this is something that, you know, we're excited to see all of you dipping into. If you're not familiar with how this works, it's really a very learnable thing. It's not as terrifying as you think once you sit down and start to do it. And Mamadou's done some really great work to make this more accessible to more people. I see a question from Nero. Is there a possibility of replicating the dashboard with another CPIMS instance? We're also planning to build a similar dashboard. Yeah, absolutely. That's the point. That's the idea. The only thing is that, you know, the data structures, the data source itself can change from place to place. So there's quite a bit of work, and I know Mamadou does this, you know, behind the scenes, but cleaning data and preparing data, and you know, there's a little bit of effort involved in that. But please do reach out. The template is available for us to share with you. The guidance is there. So it's just really a matter of putting in some time, playing around, getting comfortable with it, and adapting it to your needs. But we're going to look at lots of other solutions for data visualization. Mamadou, one thing I would like to know is that when will you be able to share the public facing link for us? Because I know that the one that you were demoing with was on a sort of a demo or a non-production website. Is that something you'll be able to share with the group?
Yeah, I can share the link with the group, and I think maximum next week I can share the final domain with them, and with the last test version of the dashboard. And this week we have to work with them too, and I think maximum next week we have to close this dashboard and the website, and we can share the link.
Because that's a big part of that's a big chunk of this solution, right? I know that for other places where we work, especially if we're working with a consortium of partners or government partner, they may not actually have a Power BI license that they want to sort of publish links for, or that they want to have some layers in front of some of their data sources, for example. And what you've done here by creating this sort of storefront front end for Burkina as a, you know, a one-stop shop for their child protection data, depending on who wants to see it and for what purpose, is really cool. That's a big an interesting part of the solution, because very often that's a thing that you know, it basically leads our partners to say, you know, this isn't a viable solution for us. So the fact that you've figured that part out as well is really you know, is really exciting for us, and we look forward to hearing more. Let's see, any other questions? I don't see any other. I see some nice comments. I see lots of applause and congratulations for you, Mamadou. But we'll move on to the next segment of the agenda. Thanks a lot for joining today, Mamadou, and stay on the line in case any other questions come up in the chat. So it's back to me now for the next section of the agenda. I'll quickly go over just so that we have a bit of a visual guide for how this is going to work. Whoops, I don't want you to see my my email. I have to enable the sound for this to work because our colleague Mohan was not able to join us today. He did prepare something for us. So, 1 second, please. I'm going to share this with you. I'm going to enable the sound on the video here. Didn't work. I'll have to come back to that in a second. But basically, the next segment of the agenda is this idea of pagination. So if you've been using the Primero API, the Cases API, you'll have noticed if you have a large caseload that the calls will only retrieve up to 1,000 rows, like 1,000 cases in a single call. And now if you're talking about visualizing 10 or 15 or 20,000, Mamadou said Nigeria's, hundreds of thousands, almost, I think it's close to 1 million records. So in situations like that, you can imagine that becomes a very manual, very heavy process. Our colleague Mohan, who's based in Bangkok and covers the East Asia Pacific region, he dug into this and started figuring out a little bit more how to make Power BI calls automated and to sort of work around this limitation that we have. This is an extension of the work that Mamadou just showed and of the previous Primero Data Challenge session, the very hands-on workshop session that Jan and Mamadou took part in. And basically what we're going to do is show you this video link. I am going to skip through the first part of it. 10 minutes is a little bit too long for us to all sit and watch a YouTube video. So we're going to just paste the link into the chat for you. But essentially, the problem that we're trying to get around is this limitation of 1,000 cases per call or per API GET request. How do we increase that? How can we automate that and save ourselves all lots and lots of time and energy? So with your permission, I am just going to go back to the split screen for a second, get the video ready, and then I am going to play part of this video for you, but not all of it. And hopefully you'll be able to hear it without any problem. 1 second, please. And I'm going to focus on the specific steps that Mohan has included in his video to do this workaround. So, with hoping that you will be able to hear this starting now.
As you know, the Primero API request is limited to maximum of 1,000 records, right? And if you have more than 1,000 records and you would like to pull the data from Primero to Power BI for your dashboard and analysis, how to do that? That's what I'm going to demonstrate to you today. Let me connect to my Primero instance. I'm using one of the demo instance. So I'll go to get data and then wave and connect to my Primero instance. This is the URL and this is the API GET request for cases. If you just use this API request and proceed, you will get, you see 20 cases here, because by default, you will get the default 20 cases that you have in the default case list view in Primero, right? So let me go to the Primero instance. This is the default case list view, and which shows 20 records, right? This is what you will get here. So we can increase this to 1,000 case. How to do that? I'll show you. I will go here in Power Query, View, and Advanced Editor, and I will edit the API request here. So this is the API call. So here by default it is showing only 20 cases, and I can increase it to 1,000. So for that I will add the parameters. I will say the page 1 and with 1,000 cases. So with this, now I will get 1,000 cases here, right? So I have 1,000 cases here. If you have more than 1,000 cases, what to do? Because at a time you can only pull 1,000 records. What you can do is make another query, yeah, which I will call page 2 cases, and then we already pulled page 1 with 1,000 case. Now we will pull page 2 with another 1,000 case, additional 1,000 case. Yeah, so then I have these two different calls. First 1,000 and second 1,000. And please note, I have total of 1,384 cases. Then in this first call, I have first 1,000 case, and in the second call, though I say 1,000 more cases, but what I only have 1,384, then in the second call, I will go at the remaining 384 cases, right? Then total, it add up to 1,380 cases, 84 cases. So we got all our cases from the system. Then you have to combine these two, right? Because we need all 1,384 cases for our reports and analysis. So for that, I will create a new query and do combine, and then I will append. Then I can append this first table and second table. Then in this new query, appended file, I will get all my cases. So now I can use this table for my analysis. So I will close and load. Okay, so all three tables are loaded, but this is the table which has all 1,384 cases, so I will be using this one for my analysis. Let me just quickly check if we have all the cases here. So I will just count the ID to ensure that I have all 1,384 records. Let me just do the scorecard, and let me just do the distinct count for this. So I have all my 1,384 cases here. Yeah, this is how do you do. But the limitation of this approach is every time you have 1,000 new records, you need to add one new query and then add that in that in the append, right? So you have to continuously do that whenever you reach new 1,000 milestone. Now I will show you how you can automate this process and get all the data without pulling queries each time you reach 1,000 case and combining them. Okay, let me just delete this combined file and also the second page call. Okay, now I want all my 1,384 cases loaded without multiple queries, yeah, and appending them. So I go to view and then advanced editor, and I need to do a few changes in my code here. I will just have to add this in the beginning, and then here where we have this page equals to 1, so we will do some modification. Instead of 1 defining page number, so we want it to be dynamic. Yeah, and then with these changes, what you will get is, you see what this additional code is doing is it is saying input a page as a number and the output should be table following this function. right? So this is what you are getting. So I can here is I have a space to pays, enter a pays, and then it will give me the output in a table format for that page. So if I do page 1, then what it is giving me is the 1000 records for page 1. And then if I go back again here, and if I do 2, then it will pull additional 1000 cases for page 2. In our case, we don't have 1000 for page 2, it is only 384, so then it will give me this 384 for page 2. That's what this function will do. Now, what we need to do is, so we have this done, we need another one step. So you need to go and add new query, blank query. Sorry. And this gives me the list 1 to 10, and I will turn into table, convert into table, and then change this column name as a page. So this is page 1 to 10. Now we will go to add and do a custom column. And in this custom column, what we want to do is we want to do these cases functions that we have it here and use the page, these page numbers into that function. So what it is doing is it is running this function, yeah, but here in the page reference, where the page number reference, it is just pulling the page number from this table. So you expand, and then once I expand, then I have these 10 pages with 1000 cases in each here. Yeah, then basically it means it can accommodate 10,000 cases. But for me, in my instance, I only have 1384 cases, so I will get 1384 cases. But this, as this query is already defining 10 pages per 1000, that means I should not be worried until I hit 10,000 cases, right? But if I want to increase, let's say I'm
All right, I'm gonna bring it back to reality for everyone. I realize that was very technical. The truth is that Mohan discovered how to do that just through his own resources and his own initiative. So I have not tried it yet. And when I do try it, I'm going to insist on asking for this to be documented in a clear step-by-step way. But you can imagine how going through these steps once, taking the time to do it and test it once, and then setting up the query so that it runs for far more cases than you have in your implementation would essentially clear the path for you for the foreseeable future until you wanted to come back and until that caseload reached the threshold that you established. So Mohan just did in that 9-minute exercise a threshold of 100,000, of 10,000 cases. So you can imagine you could easily change that table to 50 and you'd have 50,000 records included in your query. So a pretty important breakthrough for time saving, if you consider that every month you might have to go back and update your query otherwise or run it manually. I think that's a pretty fantastic innovation for us. He put a lot of work into researching and understanding that. So for any of you who look at that and you think, oh my goodness, that's way more technical than I am, and that's a huge challenge for me. I just think about where this group was like a year or 18 months ago. Most people had almost no exposure to Power BI. And we've all been through this type of journey in our work. I remember the first time I saw an Excel sheet and my head exploded and I never thought that I would be able to understand it. So it's all about just, making some effort, working within your community, understanding how this tool can work for you, and then, you know, playing around with it. And that's what this community is all about. So big thanks to Mohan. Jan's put the link to that in the chat for many of you more advanced folks. Maybe this is something that you've already worked with, but I wanted to make sure that we had a chance to show Mohan's work in this data challenge because he put a lot of time into that, but he wasn't able to join us today. Anyways, let's see a round of applause for Mohan in absentia, because he really did you know, spend a lot of time to show this how we're gonna work with this in the future. I know now that we are running a little bit low on time, and Marta Passerini is joining us for the next segment of the Shaquille's got his hand up. I'm happy to take a question, Shaquille. Oh, you were going to clap. Good. Thank you very much for that, folks. I am going to share my screen again. This time I'm going to put on the slides for Marta. So Marta, I'll control your slides for you. Just tell me when you're ready to advance, and I'll start sharing right now.
Thanks, Robert. And apologies, I missed the earlier presentations today. I'll definitely look at the recording because there was a lot of good entries. My name is Marta Passerini. I work for UNICEF HQ in Child Protection Case Management and Information Management for Case Management, and I coordinate the CPMS Steering Committee. So I'm not going to go through every slide in detail, and you can look at it later. But what we wanted to present today is a work we've done looking at child protection case management data, and we have utilized the CPIMS to do so. Next slide, Robert, please. So I'll keep, yeah, great. So in 2023, UNICEF commissioned a desk review of case management data. And the idea was to really understand who are the children that we're working with, so the profile of children in child protection case management, but also understand if there are gaps in data or things that we could improve, both from the child protection case management perspective and CPIMS perspective. Next. So we selected a number of countries that you see listed at the bottom, and this was looking at, you know, countries that had the CPIMS. Obviously, there was, you know, humanitarian situations, including those with refugees, and looking a little bit at geographic diversity. We initially had a longer list, but not everybody was able to participate because, you know, timing and response and other commitments. But this was the final group of participants. Next. Without going into the details, we had quite a long discussion with the consultant that we hired and other colleagues on what were the ethical considerations. So just to say, you know, we had looked at no personal data. Everything was not identifiable. We made sure that when we were using data, it was, you know, there was, you know, principles of consent and confidentiality were being respected. Everything was password protected a million times, including when we started combining the data to look at, you know, top line results. Next. This is the process. I won't get into all of it, but it was quite detailed, so it's taken a while. So there's, you know, we selected indicators, and then we went basically through a number of data cleaning and compilation steps until we got to data analysis. And once we had preliminary results for every country, we had a follow-up workshop of a couple hours with every country to get their feedback on the data and analysis for their own country, but also to get additional sites. And those were incredibly beneficial. So they were kind of feedback / key informant interviews that we did with every single country. And that was also important to look at recommendations, and they fed into, you know, kind of the next steps and insights. Next. So just we'll deep dive into the indicators a little bit longer, but I think this is an important thing. So initially we had selected 22 kind of indicators, key case management indicators. At the end, we could only analyze 13, and this is because certain countries were missing data on some of the indicators, some which are quite quote unquote, I'd say basic indicators for child protection case management, like unaccompanied vet versus separated children. So again, learning that will come out of that. And this is just a sample of some of them. In the end, there were 13. And then of these 13, obviously, you know, then you're doing age and sex breakdown and national and migration breakdown. So the data that comes out of it is very detailed, but these were kind of these are samples of the 13 big headings we looked at, right? So when you're looking at concerns, child protection concerns, and you break it down by age and so on. But this is example, and of course, when the report will come out, you'll have all the indicators and all the details and all the process. Next. So these were the final countries. These were the number of cases in the CPIMS that we extracted. I think there might be an error on Lebanon. It was around 7,000, but I need to double check that because the report is still not finalized. So we're at draft. And we decided on a time frame. So these were the cases from January 1st, 2020 that were entered into the system from January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2023. So that was the age bracket. And we looked at both open and closed cases, which has implications when you're doing analysis, but yes, all those cases came in. So it's quite a substantial number. So again, this is around, you know, data cleaning and analysis. Because we're short on time, I think just to say the sample size is statistically significant and a 95% confidence level. So that's pretty good. And the system that we used to do all the analysis was Stata. And then just to say, for those who are familiar, when we started grouping, I would say subheadings or disaggregations, we used a thing called child protection data categorization, which has recently been finalized. So because we had, for example, group protection concerns, we had over 57 different types of protection concerns across all the countries, because some countries say physical abuse, some say physical violence, some say both, some put them together. So we had to at one point decide how we were going to present and organize the data. And we have used the forward-thinking data categorization guidance, which is linked to other work we're doing that I'll present towards the end. But just to say there was a structure, and this again is detailed in the final report, because there had to be a way of organizing it for the analysis. Next. So some results. So we looked, again, this is just, we'll go through a couple of them. There's a lot more we could dive into. One of them was looking at case duration. So how long is a case open on average? And that's 149 days, which I think is 5 to 6 months. Why were we looking at this? To inform in terms of programming, you know, how long do we budget for a case? When you're working in an NGO, you have to budget, you know, a certain amount of time. You would look at this and you would like to have that estimate. It can also be used as a metric to estimate efficiency. If you have a lot of cases that are staying open a year, that would be a reason to look into it, and we could provide further guidance on that, for example. And of course, again, in the report, we have it by country and the differences between the different countries who are at different stages of their responses, right? So that there's all these other kind of programmatic and contextual considerations in there, but this is, again, kind of the top line show right now. Next. Risk level. So this is looking at when cases are first identified, what is the risk level that's attributed, which is usually low, medium, or high risk, or sometimes there's 4 levels in some countries. But basically, we saw that most cases were identified as medium risk. It's interesting when you look at countries because we had two major refugee responses where one, everybody was high risk, and the other one had a very high number of low risk. Now, here, there's a lot of things one could say is, you know, when the standard operating procedures were drafted or based on the legislation, how are risk levels attributed? So this hasn't got to do only with data, it's got to do with contextual understanding. But anyways, but it does give us some insight and learnings, again, for case management. Next. Age. So when we looked at age, the average age of children in case management is 12 years old. The most common age group overall is 10 to 14 years old, which at 36%. There's obviously a very small number of children 0 to 4 who are in case management, and I think we can assume why. Self-identification at that age is hard. A lot of things are hard to pick. Children are not going to school, which is a lot of time an entry point for identification. But one of the interesting things was a lot of children tend to not age out of child protection case management because they enter the system at such a young age. cases tend to be closed before they're 18. And this is something we always ask ourselves, is around aging out in child protection case management, and what are we going to do? And so again, in the italics, you see some of the reflections that come out in the report. There's a lot of considerations, but also in terms of CPIMS, for example, looking at what are the resources we need, thinking of how long a case stays when they're a certain age. Do you need 2 system administrators? Do you need 1? What's the predictability in terms of the number of cases? So a lot of things that are related to case management, but also would influence potentially costing and planning for the CPIMS. Next. Sex, 50%, 56% of male versus 44% of females. You see the breakdown by country here. Some countries have a much higher number of male children than others. A lot of it's got to do with the fact that in some countries you have very extensive GBV programming. So a lot of the adolescent girls and younger girls might be being actually serviced by GBV case management versus child protection case management. Equally, the types of risks in each country might influence things differently. So if you look at Lebanon, we see a very high number of males. Lebanon, in their one-on-one, this is why those were so important, did talk about the expansion of, the extension, of their GBV programming, but also the fact that, for example, the number of male working children in agriculture and so on was one of the prevalent issues. And so that might explain some of these numbers. Again, top line examples. Next. And then care arrangements. So it was interesting. So when we looked, I found this to be one of the most interesting findings, because it looked at it tells us that most children are living with family or caregivers. So it's really interesting to think about it, because from a case management perspective, that just highlights how important it is to work with children, but also know how to work with their caregivers and families. But also in terms of how case management links to broader and other child protection programming around family support, right? So family strengthening is a key pillar of child protection case management. But then how do we do this, and how do we work with this? So again, interesting finding. Obviously, if you look at the number of unaccompanied and separated children, that would be looking completely different. And there is a deep dive on unaccompanied and separated children also, but this is looking at the overall numbers of any child that's been randomly selected to whose data was analyzed. Next. And then child protection threats, also called child protection concerns in the old forms. We're going to try and align our language going forward. So as I said, when we looked at the different countries, it was really hard to put these into buckets. And that's one of the key findings. We had 58 different protection concerns across the different countries. People call things different. People define them differently, mark them differently. So we bucketed them into the data categorization categories, which are 6 main categories. And I'll pop them in the chat later, because I do see the time ticking. But just to say, neglect was high, violence was high, and child labor was high. Now, neglect is a tricky one, right? Because people interpret neglect to be many things. So again, big learning on how do we improve what is the definition of neglect, and what is neglect versus violence, and how do we distinguish that. But these were kind of the 3 big things that emerged. Next. So challenges, and I've mentioned it a little bit in the presentation, the fact that in the past we haven't had clear data categories and definitions in child protection case management means that it was hard to generate evidence across country context on things like protection concerns / threats, what we want to call it now, but also other buckets, like reasons for closures were different across countries. The way we were marking care arrangements was different across countries. And so what we're calling the different kind of drop downs. And so that already has been addressed through the data categorization work, and then will be reflected in the CPIMS obviously going forward, but that was a huge learning. We didn't have core and mandatory data fields in the past. We've always allowed countries to, choose what is most fitting their context, but we've come to the realization that some data fields have to be mandatory. We cannot not choose accompanied, unaccompanied versus separated. This is important data for our work globally. Equally for care arrangements, or if child has a mother or father, those kind of things really need to be mandatory. we had contradictory data entry, so it said the case was closed, but then there was a reason for closure, or the case was not closed, but then it was, you know, so that stuff we had to work through, and again, learnings that we're working into current work. And then, of course, the specific contextual considerations that will skew the data. And that's always going to be like that when you're looking at different countries and different regions, but those are important to consider when looking at the data. Now, I think just to make everybody feel better, a lot of the findings that have emerged are being addressed, again, through a lot of the case management work we're doing, the data categorization, but importantly for this group, we're really looking to, we're updating the global forms, which will then be built into CPIMS, and a KPI dashboard that is based on data categorization, the new forms, and the findings from this research. And so all of this will influence not only child protection case management work, but also improve the CPIMS as a tool, also for data analysis, and what comes out of that for better programming. Next. And then just opportunities, I think, just to highlight how amazing this was to have all this data in the CPIMS and how much we've done with it, but how much more we probably could have done with it, and how we want to continue to use the CPIMS as a case management tool, but also as a space for learning and improving our work overall because of data. I think it's really important going forward that the CPIMS rollouts are aligned to data categorization and the new forms. I'm not asking everybody to go back and change their forms, but new work as people revise their forms and update their CPIMS, please reach out to get those tools and make sure you're using the most recent tools. And then just that, you know, when we're deploying the CPIMS, to make sure that, you know, we're really thinking of the programmatic elements, those core mandatory fields, and what does that mean? And then, you know, the KPI dashboard that we're going to be building for the CPIMS to help us data regularly, I think is a huge opportunity going forward. Save the Children is leading on that piece of work. But again, another great opportunity, and done. That's it. Thanks. I hope I was quick enough. The report will be coming out in the next couple months, and we'll be sharing it with this group and with many others. Happy to get, you know, feedback, suggestions also in the report, but also if people have other recommendations that they have come up with, you know, through their work, do reach out. Thank you so much, and thanks for the time.
Bravo, that's amazing. It's amazing. I can't believe it's been 10 years and we're only looking at the data this way with this level of methodology and integrity of analysis. Let's open up the floor for any questions that people might have. We only have a few minutes left, but very impressive work. Does anybody have any questions? I saw actually one from Avanti. How would the KPI dashboard be different from insights? That's quite technical. We can unpack that for you, but yeah, essentially, you know, insights is a Primero feature, a Primero reporting feature. I don't know if that question was directed at Marta, probably not. Anybody have any questions specifically about the research piece? I'd like to know when that final report will be published and when we can disseminate it.
Yeah, so within the next 2 months, because I have forms, guidelines, and this coming out in the next few weeks, so we're trying to juggle all of them. But yeah, in the next couple months for sure. Maybe before, but I don't want to commit to that because, you know, we have copy editing and so on. And then once it's, you know, finalized, happy to, you know, reshare with this group any additional insights that we have. Yeah.
Cool. The only other thing is that just to say to everybody that this is the kind of material that you can use if you're looking for, if you're fundraising, if you're developing proposals, this is gold. This is gold for you because it provides the evidence for us to make assertions about investments in specific interventions, about how long those interventions are going to last, for example. This level of analysis is, it's rare that we get something like this that specifically, you know, sort of reinforces and strengthens some of our positions on investment in case management. So awesome work. Thank you very much, Marta. We're coming to.
If I can just add one thing on top of that, Robert, is just, I think also as we fundraise for the CPIMS, how important it is to show what an important tool it is for data analysis, right? And I think I'd like to develop like a pitch after this, the research for that based on the research. We know donors are always more interested in data analysis for improving program quality, but it's not just for donors. It's really for us to do better work with children. So it's on my to-do, and then I can reach out to the Primero team on that. Over.
Awesome. Thanks very much. We've kept everybody on the line, and it's been a great group. We were up to 55 people at one point. That's a very successful outing for us. So I'm happy to wrap this one up. You feel free to keep sending in questions. This is an ongoing initiative, so don't be shy. We're going to ask you also for your own submissions to the data challenge. I already had a couple of people reaching out and saying, how do you think this would be a good idea for the data challenge? My answer is yes. You know, if you want to spotlight work that you're doing on data usage, this is the place to do it. We had a couple of other short agenda items, but I'll just send these over email for everybody so that we can end on time. We did have a major release this week. Primero version 2.11 came out to demo environments to sandboxes on Tuesday. This is a major shift for us away from Solar into Postgres. With that comes a whole bunch of new functionality and capabilities for Primero, for data analysis, for data usage. We'll follow up with you on that. Tentatively, we are planning the next data challenge on the 12th of December, the Q4 one. Share your submissions with me. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to see what you're doing. Build on what we're sharing with you. And last but not least, the voting for the winner for the 2024 cycle of the data challenge will happen during the global meeting. That's 2 complete years of doing this data challenge. We've had something in the neighborhood of about 700 people engaged directly on this. We've had many thousands of visits to the sites. So something's working, and you're all a part of that. So thank you very much for joining us today. We'll be posting all of this material, follow-up materials on the microsite. And yeah, please share widely, and we look forward to the next data challenge. Have a wonderful day. Thanks again, everyone.